Hello, Dackland Radio listeners. You're listening to Campfire Tales with your host, me, the old man of the Adirondacks. Woohoo! Yay! Clap, 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 clap. Cheer, cheer, cheer. Woohoo! It is a beautiful day here in the Adirondacks as I record this program. The sun is shining. It's nice and warm. If you're brave enough to go outside, that is. The black flies are hot and heavy. They're big this year and thirsty, as always. If you're brave enough to go out there, I salute you. If you have to work out there, I double salute you. These black flies are hot. The curse of the Adirondacks. But I suppose if it weren't for these black flies, we'd have tourists up here all year long. Well, that and the 6 months of winter and cold and snow. That I know some of you love that stuff, but as you know, if you listen to this program, I'm about sick of snow. I need sunny and 70, 365. That would be just about perfect. So long as the fish were biting, I guess. But this is Campfire Tales, and I have an email address of oldmanadk@gmail.com, and I have a group on my Facebook page, oldmanadk. Please send in your stories, send in your pictures. I would just like to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think of the program so far. What would you like to hear told on Campfire Tales? Do you have tales that you would like to be told? I'll tell them. I'd happily tell them. What do you want to hear more about? Is it Bigfoot? Is it creature sightings? Is it UFOs? Extraterrestrials? People say they've seen them. Same with Bigfoot. How about Slender Man? There's been a couple of people who said they have seen Slender Man, or other weird creatures that may or may not be here in the Adirondacks. How about wolves or mountain lions, black panthers? I'd like to hear your stories. I'd like to see your pictures. Again, oldmanadk@gmail.com or just oldmanadk. That's my Facebook group. Last week, you were introduced to tomfoolery, aka the Green Hatchet Man, and a bunch of shenanigans that went on way back when. And we left off with a horse-drawn covered trailer that was mysteriously left in Newton's Corners on Labor Day, just prior to the big annual Labor Day picnic that the locals attend and the Flatlanders attend too. And it's kind of a goodbye, see you next year type of celebration. And I kind of left you hanging with the covered trailer doing something. We don't know what, but it was doing something. And this was supposed to be, or this will be, tomfoolery's biggest and baddest prank. This week, however, we're going to look a little closer about where tomfoolery first came into the Adirondacks. What was he doing? How did he become the Green Hatchet Man? This is an original story developed by me with some help from my editor. And I sure do hope you enjoy this. So, here we go. Now, I know last week we were at Tom's biggest, baddest prank, but I think a little backstory might be in order. You see, before Tom was a bearded man, he was a small, unbearded man. One July in the late 1920s, there was a terrible thunderstorm that hit especially hard in the valley that is the Conjumac River. Our friend, Tom Foolery, is hunkered down in his meager, dark cave. That's the Conjumac Cave, if you're wondering. He was sitting Indian style. He rests, contemplating the power of the storm raging all around him. The lightning seems to bounce around the mountains as it heralds the thunder that is destined to follow. Strong gusts of wind topple trees and throw sheets of rain in first one direction and then the other. Lightning strikes, and Tom counts out loud, 1 loincloth, 2 loincloth, 3 loincloth, until thunder does what it does best. It thunders. 3 seconds, Tom says out loud. The storm's getting close. If you were a fly on the wall, you would be giggling about now, for all Tom had on was a loincloth. Strangely, these frugal leather undies are very greenish. I'm sure glad he wasn't named for his green undergarments. Green Loincloth Man. Tom was taught at an early age by native Indians that by counting loincloths, one after the other, he can figure out how far off a thunderstorm is. I like to count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 to measure seconds, but to each his own. Who am I to say that you can't count by loincloths? Almost instantly, Tom is at his feet, startled by lightning striking just outside the entrance to his cave. No need to count, as the thunder is instantaneous. Deafening. Quite literally deafening. As the sound rattled around Tom's cave, it also rattled around poor Tom's head, causing him to become, temporarily, deaf, blind, and stupid. I can't be sure, but shortly after this incident, people around town were heard using the phrase, "What are you, deaf, dumb, and stupid?" Coincidence? Well, the storm eventually moved off to the north as Tom slowly regained his senses. No longer deaf and dumb, Tom slowly opened his eyes as they began to focus on his immediate surroundings. Green, Tom thought. Has the whole world turned green? No, not the world, but the cave. This green seemed to be coming from behind him, deeper in his small and musty cave. Tom turned and blinked his eyes, trying to make out where and what this strange glowing light was. His eyes settled on a singular item. An immaculate green hatchet lay on the floor, emanating a slowly vanishing green light. Tom could see that this was no ordinary hatchet, for he had an eye for quality craftsmanship, and this was by far the finest he had ever laid his eyes on. Cautiously, Tom moves closer to the mysterious hatchet and noticed 2 words engraved on the face of the blade. These 2 words continued to glow, but only slightly. Donkey Kong were the 2 words. Whilst pondering these words, Tom slowly reached for the smooth handle. Gently, he touched the smooth wood with just a single finger, and then another finger, until his fingers firmly grasped the unnaturally warm handle. Foolery cautiously drew the tool into his lamplight to examine his new treasure. His eyes seemed to have a light of their own as he admired the attention to detail, the weight and balance of this magical tool that had become his. The words Donkey Kong were still swimming, wandering really, through Tom's recently rattled brain. Strange, Tom thought. Fantastical. Stupendous. Splendid. Marvelous. So excited was Tom that he bellowed, sounded more like a belch really, Donkey Kong! All the light in the small cavern was suddenly and very unexpectedly sucked out of the shelter. Tom fell to his knees and gripped the handle as if he would never let it go, his most prized possession. Tomfoolery! An ominous and dreadfully deep voice thunderously echoed in poor Tom's head. So close to going deaf, blind, and stupid again, he fell to all fours with his forehead buried in the dirt floor. Tom almost passed gas. Not just a little squeak such as a balloon makes when you attempt to allow just a little air out, but like something akin to a whoopee cushion when sat on properly. It could have been dreadful for Tom, but instead, it was humorous. In fact, Tom started to giggle. To Tom, a fart was one of the funniest things one could encounter. There was a time when Tom was at a church service, seated in the front row, right next to the center aisle. All he needed to do to make eye contact with the good preacher was to look up. Tom had been invited in the hopes that a little churchin may help this poor lad turn away from his foolery. It was no use. Tom, as hard as he may try to hold it in. I know that feeling. Just when you think all is good and wonderful in the world, all this uncomfortable holding it in has helped. It really hits and something horrible and unirrevocable happens. The poor minister was chased out of town shortly after he made eye contact with the now red-faced tomfoolery. Hilarity ensued as those who were not too uptight to laugh at such things. Tom even fell off the pew he was seated in, so hard he tee-heed. The smell was so bad that many of the women had to be ushered out of the building by men wearing hankies over their noses. All of this flashed through Tom's subconscious mind while he was prostrate on the floor with a horrible voice echoing back and forth in poor Foolery's noggin. Tomfoolery! The voice cried once again, this time mixed with more than a little agitation. You have awoken me. I would a reckon that'd be the lightning, Tom protested weakly, peering out from behind his hands. Tom never quite knew when it was best to keep quiet. Your pranks annoy the entire woods, boy, the voice declared. I've been ignoring it since they didn't affect me. But now you're here in my cave, and now you've picked up my hatchet. Tom was beginning to find a wee bit more courage. Actually, I think this is my hatchet now. Do you fear me, boy? The voice thundered. You'll be cursed for this. Tom snickered. Oh, will I? You're not the first one to tell me that. I reckon you won't be the last either. If you take my hatchet, you will never be free of me again. Any stunt you pull will do as much damage to you as to the intended victims. And when you're done, you will belong to me. I belong to no man, said Tom without much conviction. He hesitated just for a moment to gather his wits, and then slowly peered around the small cavern. eyes now settled at the cavern entrance, where there was a shadow that should not be there. Looking closely, the first thing Tom noticed was the size of the shadow. It was not big like he expected, but smallish, no taller than a 10-year-old boy. Looking close, Tom noticed 2 eyes lit with a dull green light, like candles behind dark stained glass, and a mouth shaped like a grimace. The last time he could remember seeing a mouth in such a displeased fashion was the last time he tried to pull one over on his mother. Tom sure hoped that he wouldn't receive the same treatment his mother gave him, for he could not sit properly for quite some time after the whooping she dished out. Other than that, all Tom could make out was hair. Lots and lots of greenish hair, sticking out in every and all directions, a bit like Captain Caveman. If you are too young to know who Captain Caveman is, you are young enough to use Google, just not right now. I'm telling a story, and that would be rude. "Who are you?" Tom asked in a rather subdued voice. "Call me Daunchy. That in your hand there is Kong, the hatchet me and Da crafted long ago." You'll have to hang